I just thought this image was gorgeous, gorgeous,
Yeah.
gorgeous. The colors and just, you know, how still and peaceful it is. I thought this would be the perfect thing for us to do. And with it being a sunset scene, there's going to be a lot of technical aspects that we're going to go over and that are really going to help you, because as beautiful as sunset paintings are, they are a challenge to paint, and we will go over why. It's really some very key simple things that you can do, and if you do them. Yeah, somebody trying to.
Okay, well, it's really fun.
Hi, Sharon.
Oh, hi. Do I need to mute myself?
No. We're good. Actually, yeah, we're good for now until I start the painting. So there's a couple things I want you to have before we start. I want you to have a tissue or a paper towel, because we're going to be using that. So make sure that you have that. And I would recommend that you have, you know, 2 cups of water, because we're going to have 2 different color families that we're working with. It's always best to have 2, or you can just change it real quick. And I want you to make sure that you have, you know, the thinnest brush that you can have, because we're going to need one of those. And let's see what else. And the rest is just the usual. So one of the challenges we have when we're doing things like a sunset or a rainbow or anything that you're going to have colors of different families, colors that don't necessarily connect, is how to get those transitions to be smooth. And in the case of a sunset on water, you've got the yellows and the oranges, those bright, warm colors, and then you've got the blues of the seas. So the one thing that can very easily happen is that if your blues get on your yellows, you're going to get green. And that is probably not a color that you want on this scene. So you can see that some areas will be a little bit greenish, but we are not getting that green as in greenery that we do have in landscapes. So I'm going to show you some really cool tricks. And actually, like, I'm really proud of these little tricks, because I kind of, you know, over the years have developed ways to prevent those unwanted color mixings to happen. So, and again, you know, with watercolors, it is somewhat forgiving. If you don't like an area, just wet it with water and pick it up very gently with a tissue or mop it up with a brush. So don't worry if you kind of miss something. And I want to say the Chinese ink drawings were gorgeous. I mean, they are so beautiful. I received so many, and I think a lot of you really enjoyed, you know, adding the color to it, which is, I think is kind of a fun touch. And just to let you know that ink drawing, the technique and handling the pen does come with practice. It's not something that you do the very first time. I mean, I think my early starts with ink pen were, you know, looked very juvenile, at least to me. So it does take practice, because it's kind of a one hit, you know, you're not, you know, you can't go back and take that line off. So make sure that you always give yourself some credit, okay? So I am going to start just showing you a couple things. So I want you to have just the practice page for now, and we're just gonna do a little bit of color mixing, and I'm gonna show you how to go around blues and yellows so we can prevent the green from happening. So Melissa, if we can spotlight the iPhone with the drawing pad. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the very first thing I want to tell you is that we are mostly going to be working with wet on wet. So let's just do a quick revision to what wet on wet is, which means you're going to wet an area. So you're going to wet the paper. I usually like to take a big moppy brush, and I kind of like to see where I'm wetting. So what I'm going to do, instead of just taking plain water, is I am going to tint my water. So I'm going to take some water, and I'm just going to take a very light color. So let's say I'm gonna work on the purple sky. I'm gonna take a drop of purple. So I've got my water here. Okay, so I'm just giving it like just a tint. So what I'm going to do is I am going to wet my paper. And you want to wet it to where, you know, it's glistening, but not sogging wet. Okay, so this is my wet area, okay? So before it dries, what I do is I take colors, we're just doing this hypothetically, and you're gonna drop the color into the water, okay? And what this does is that it gives you very smooth transitions for colors. So the wet paint is going, and you don't have to do it in lines, of course. The wet paint is mingling with the water, and you get some really nice seamless areas. You get some pleasant surprise. So this is the wet on wet. So wet on dry means just wet paint, where you just take your paint and you're going directly onto the paper. That's wet on dry. Okay, and wet on, I mean, we use both, but with this one in particular, we just want a very kind of smooth, kind of flowing feel to it. And wet on wet is great for backgrounds. Wet on wet is not something you want to do when you're creating detail. So just keep that in mind. So that's the first thing, is how to just do the wet on wet. And it's going to be a little bit lighter than what you have when it's wet. So the other thing I'm going to show you is how to not have the issue of the yellows and blues mixing and creating green. So in this painting, we do have the yellows are kind of centered. So we do have the sun peeking through kind of in the middle. If you're looking at the image, we have a little bit at the top, and we do have some reflections that are getting more orange in the water, and then we have the sand. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is kind of how we're going to start. This is one way to start this painting. There's so many different ways you can do it, but we're going to do this one because I feel it's kind of the most foolproof method. So what I'm going to do, and this one again is just, I'm just going to do this one as a practice, is I'm going to put in my goldens and yellows. You can always brighten the golds and yellows a little bit later. And so we're just going to put it down as a color. So I am going to take, it's closer, you know, any yellows, golds that you have. Okay, so again, this is not the actual painting. So I'm going to put the yellows where I have them. Again, I'm working wet on dry just for the demonstration. And I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and brown, and I'm gonna just put in that bottom area. Okay, so while this is wet, what I'm going to do in order to protect the yellows and the blues from moving into each other, I'm gonna take a thin brush. So the trick is you want to find a common color between that will transition from the yellow to the blue. Now this is very small and it's very subtle. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a little bit of purple, just very little, and some water, and I am going to very lightly border my yellow areas. Again, very light. And if this got dry, just add some water to it. Just, okay, that's a little too much. So what I'm doing here is I'm sealing off these yellow areas. And again, it doesn't have to be steady. You're not actually putting a frame. This is just a little trick we're doing. So again, up here, let it mix in a little bit with the yellow. Again, you can just use water to drag it around. So again, this is kind of like a pale purple. If your purple is very blue, just add a little bit of red to it and it will make it. So what's happening when this purple is mixing with the yellow, it is giving me kind of an orangey color, which is something that I want, okay? But also the blue in the purple is going to help me get to the blue because purple is blue and red, okay? So I'm going to very gently put the blue in. See, I'm putting the blue not in the yellow, but I am putting it, again, just, you know, for demos, we're just doing any blue. And again, add water. This is just gonna be very light. If it mixes in a little bit with the yellow, it's totally fine. Okay, so now if I want to go ahead and do a brighter blue, I'm safe because it's not going to go into that yellow, it's going to go into that purple. Okay, so again, I like to use kind of a little bit more of a cooler blue, and then I can move into the colors. Okay, so that is one way we can transition from yellow to blue without the blue and the yellow mixing, because I'm going to show you what happens if the yellow and blue mix. You're going to get green. See that up here? And that's, I mean, and that's putting it mildly. You could get a lot of green. So, so again, you put down your yellows, your goldens, you lightly border them with a thin brush with a warm purple. So again, I'm going to show you, like, this is a warm purple, just so it's got a lot of pink to it. And for example, this is a cool purple and it has a lot more blue into it. So, you know, just look in your set and see what you have. So again, if you have only this one, if you just add a little bit of red to it, see, it's going to warm it up. Because the idea is when you're transitioning from one color to the other and you don't want to get a new unwanted color like the green, you need to find the common ground. So from yellow, we put the purple. Purple has red and it has blue in it. The red and yellow, when they're mixing, we're getting an orange, and then the blue is mixing well with the purple. Okay, and you know, this seems very technical at this point, but it will become second nature to you once you start practicing a little bit more in the future. Okay, so that's as far as protecting the blue and the yellows from mixing. So I'm going to show you one that I started. Okay, and you can see my bordering of the blue and the yellow over here. I had started putting in the deeper clouds, but so far I think almost all of this is wet on wet. Okay, and one thing I want you to be careful with is this area where there's the foam, because we need to leave some of that white, but also we're going to be using the tissue. I'm going to show you a technique to use so that you know, we can create some texture and effects. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, this is a photograph, but when you're doing a painting, you always want to think of your horizon line as being off center, so you can decide if you want more sea or you want more sky. In my case, I have more sea, so it's, you know, a little bit more than 1/3 and then 2/3. Okay, so we're going to start with our kind of common ground color, which I think throughout the whole thing is kind of the purple. So we're going to mix up a very friendly purple, meaning that we don't want it to be too bright, and we're going to put down our horizon line. So with a thin brush, and again, the horizon line does not need to be you know, very straight. They typically are not. Might have a little bit of a slant to it. So I have this purple. I'm just going to put a touch of brown. And what brown does is it just mutes it a little bit. So I am going to just very lightly put down my horizon line. Okay. And again, it seems to be, it just has more thickness according to our visual on this side. Okay, so this kind of is guiding me to where things are. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the line of where the water is reaching with the foam. Again, I'm just going to use that same purple because it's kind of a friendly color. And I'm just going to very lightly trace it. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly wave by wave. Okay, so now I have, just by these two simple lines, I have my areas that I'm going to be working with mapped out. So I have the sky, I have the water, and I have the sand. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the sky because that's going to be a lot of fun. And I am going to put in the yellows and the goldens first. So depending on what you have in your sets, I have like, this is a very strong lemon yellow. Maybe I would use that towards the end. And then I've got kind of like a mustard yellow and more of an orange yellow. I don't know, my set, the yellows seem to be very opaque. They're not very transparent. So I'm just going to use very little of them. And I'm going to use my fabulous Dollar Tree palette. So I'm just going to put some water and I'm going to just mix in some yellow. You know, when you're first laying down colors, you know, don't worry about getting it 100% right as long as you're within the range. And I'm going to put in my yellows. So I see a big stroke up here. I see some down here. And then there are some that are kind of creeping in to the water. And since I have that color, I'm just gonna, there's like a certain brightness over here on this side. Okay, so that's as far as my yellows. We do see them up here a little bit. We can add those later. I just wanted to get the key colors in. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna wet the sky. Now I want you to wet this, but I want you to kind of not really get too close to these yellows. So again, I want to tint it. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that purple just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm wetting the paper. And my yellow is just kind of dripping over here. So I'm just going to pick some of it up. Okay. So in my wet areas, I'm going to start putting just a festival of purples, pinks, oranges. These are all going to mix well together. So you can work comfortably, even if they get on the yellow. There are some areas that have some blue and we're going to kind of pick them out areas. So I want you to kind of leave this area out over here that has the blue and just a little bit down here so we can add the blue a little bit later. So just don't make it too dark. Okay, so I'm going to start with the lighter clouds. Again, probably something like, you know, a medium brush. And I am going to, I have my favorite pink over here. Again, that's one color I believe is worth buying separately if you want to get like, see, like it's a really nice strong pink. So I'm going to just put that in here. Okay, see how the colors are starting to play? I'm already getting some oranges. I'm gonna take a little bit of purple and, you know, just kind of just let them play. If there's not enough water for them to move around, you know, just add a little bit of water, okay? So, and make sure that you still look at your reference. I'm gonna use kind of a cooler purple. And as you get closer to the yellow areas, try to warm it up a little bit, maybe a little bit of red, which will mix nicely. And again, you know, have fun with it. The one thing you just want to make sure with this project is when you get to the blue that we don't mix the blue and yellow. That's really pretty much the only restriction that we do have. And just make sure that, you know, the consistency of a weak tea, you don't want your colors to be too dark, because really the only part that is giving, you know, kind of the darkness and the contrast is this big cloud over here. Oops, too sharp. See what happens if it's too much, just add some water to it. And you know, you can exaggerate the colors, you know, make it more purple, more pink, just depending on what it is you personally like. So again, I'm going to go to the yellow, just give it a thin frame with a purple or a pink, because I know I'm going to be putting the blue over here. So I want a little bit of a barrier. Again, going from for those of you that are not muted, can you mute yourself just so that there's no noise? Or Melissa, can you mute?
I'll mute everybody.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's work on this for a while. Yeah, somebody's still on. I mean, I can tell you who.
Everyone should be muted now.
Yeah, I think now. Yes. Okay, so again, where you're seeing stronger, you know, oranges, for example, like here, and while it's still wet, and when you're putting the wet on wet, make sure that you don't rub, because you don't want to agitate the paper. The paper is very kind of fragile when it's wet. And just be mindful of the areas that have blue in them. So hopefully the image this week was higher resolution. Justin and I really played around with them to make sure that the image is clear.
Oops.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Okay.
Are you gonna paint?
We'll
Need
see.
to get you to paint.
I missed half the class, so.
Oh, yeah. Excuses. I tell you what, if you paint, I will let you pick the subject.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy.
So much pressure, huh?
That image was so much better, by the way, this week. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, what I did is I had to put it in a program
Okay.
because the thing that's happening, I think, when it's coming directly out of my device to someone, it's fine. But
Mhm.
I think when it's doing so much travel, it's translating as a surface image. I don't know. Don't ask me.
Yeah.
This is what I concluded. I actually did not even get my husband's help because I think he would complicate it probably a little bit more.
Okay.
And so I did save it in a program that will give very high resolution. It's kind of it's a book editing. It's
Okay.
a illustrator's edit. Anyways, so now we know what to do.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So is everyone pretty much finished with the sky, or kind of, sort of? No? No? Okay, take your time. I was told that I go too fast, so I'm trying to, just want to give you all the tidbits, the secrets of the trade. Okay, so once you get to the spot up here that has that little peak of blue, what I want you to do is to take the purple and with your thin brush, just like, remember, you don't want it to be really, I mean, we're calling it a border, but we're just basically just protecting that area, okay? And kind of just mix it in so it doesn't look, and if the area is dry, just add a little bit of water to it. And then you can comfortably put in the blue if it needs more water. So see now when I put in the blue, it's not touching the yellow, and it just plays with the purples a little bit. And then I'm gonna take some of that blue and I'm just gonna sweep it in this cloud over here. Again, I'm gonna stay away from the yellow. And I'm gonna start putting in some blues into the shadows. The clouds. Oh, I said shadows. And then once the wet on wet area is dry, you know, you can go and add, you know, add more color to it. It doesn't have to be the final step. Sharon, have you decided not to go on your trip, or? Oh, you're muted. Okay.
No,
Oh.
I'm here at my daughter's house.
Oh, you're
And I'm
there
just-
already. Okay.
The kids are doing their virtual classes in their bedrooms right now. So
Okay.
I'm,
So you are in Dallas already?
yeah,
Okay. Great.
yeah, there wasn't any heavy traffic or anything.
Okay. I think it's because you went early. That was good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we got up very, very early and went because we didn't
Yeah.
want traffic.
That's smart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourselves. Anyone Anyone have any questions or any comments or anything? You can unmute yourself if you want to ask anything. No? All good? We move on a little bit to the water. Okay, so now we are going to move down to the water. And okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to protect kind of this area where we want the white. So there's a couple things you can do. So we want to give this kind of, this almost like very light clay color that we're seeing in the sand. It's very warmed up because of the sun hitting on it. So I'm going to use yellow. Let me bring this closer. I've got, see how opaque this yellow is? I mean, it is like not transparent for some reason. Yellows are, they're tough. They take a lot of work to get them right. And I'm gonna take a little bit of orange, which made it way too orange. I'm gonna take a little bit of brown. Okay, so this color is pretty dark, so I'm just gonna add some water to it. And I am going to put down that color here. And again, if you want it to mix with the golden color that you put earlier, just put some water, a little bit, and just let it kind of blend in. You can see that there's some faint, like almost like lavender and turquoise shadows, very, very faint over here on this side, and we can do those later. Okay, so for this part over here where you're seeing a little bit of the sand, and then over here you have the foam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to do it kind of in patches where I'm seeing it. And I'm just going to leave spaces. Almost like, like a giraffe pattern, let's say, like a random kind of. And again, you noticed in this area, I'm not using wet on wet because I need a little bit more control. So what I'm doing with these shapes, I'm leaving a space between them. And that's kind of leaving room for the white. And it kind of seems to trail off as we get over here. Okay. So what I'm going to do for this area, there's two ways you can do it. You can very lightly put in the areas leaving out the white, or you can lightly put in the color, and then with a tissue, if you just kind of wind up the tissue like this, it'll create kind of almost like a brush that will, like an eraser. Okay, you see that? I'll do that again. And I'm putting in my color. And see, I'm just swiping. Okay, so I don't know if you can see what that's kind of doing. It's kind of fun. And the idea is to show you different things, and then you can kind of use what you like try different things. You never know. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit more of that. And again, also that you could have, you know, done it up here. Okay. I think I'm just going to kind of carve out some of this color here. I want to introduce a little bit more. You can even, you know, press this if you're trying to get sharper print. Okay, so what we're going to start, well, actually, I just realized that this is almost like a diagonal composition. So I'm just going to have this go a little bit higher up. And since I have this color, and if you like it and it's working, I'm just going to use some of it in the goldens over here, just to give this area a little bit more depth. You know, don't put it everywhere because you don't want to lose that strong brightness. Okay, and also kind of putting that, you know, that kind of clay color is going to mix nicely with the very, very teeny protective border that we're going to put before we get into the blues. And again, when you're doing something like this where you have water and you have ripples, you know, you don't need to do each one individually. What you want to think of is you really want to get a rhythm going, you know, just try to look at it and try to, you know, get a sense of what the movement is there. And, you know, individual artists pick up on different things, you know, or if there's, you know, even the movement of the clouds, you know, try to think of how they're moving, what the direction of the wind, because, you know, the wind is kind of creating those directional lines in there. So you kind of want to decide, I mean, it doesn't have to be that scientific, but kind of, you know, like on this one, you kind of see the water rolling, 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 and then almost becoming diagonal, and it comes to the shore. So if your lines are in that direction, it's really going to help strengthen that point of view. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is we are going to put in this sharp turquoise that we have here and the fainter one here. Again, this is an area that we want to strongly protect. So I am going to do a warm purple. I'll bring that closer so you can see. Okay, again, that's really strong right now. I'm just gonna put it here. And again, if your purple is darker or more blue, just add a touch of red to it. Again, the thinnest brush you can have, you can find. And, you know, I'll tell you one thing with watercolors, if you really are getting into them, I would highly recommend that you buy a variety of sizes and, you know, try to find the brushes that you like and that you're comfortable with. But, you know, as a rule, when you're working on delicate areas, you want a thinner brush. And, you know, I'm always surprised how thin they can actually go. So every once in a while, they'll come up with a brush that is so thin. I was like, how did they even make that? So there's, you know, Texas Art Supply, if you're here in Houston, is absolutely fantastic. And, you know, it's, I mean, you can order online or pick up, but also, you know, it's a big place, so it's easy to social distance, and they're extremely helpful. So I'm going to go to my yellows, and I'm just going to just give them a little bit of a border. So I don't want it to stay like this. So what I'm going to do, because it's just framing it a little too much, is I'm just going to gently kind of blur it out. Okay, and I'm going to do that on this side. And then I'm going to, and this is going to work really nicely because in between these very golden parts, there is like a purple that is kind of peeking through. And again, if it's too strong, just add water. It's that simple. And remember, with watercolors, you know, your colors are going to build. It's very rare, unless you're doing a quick sketch, that you will be getting that color with its strength. You should always be able to see the paper through watercolors, no matter how much color you put in. Okay, so I'm going over here. Again, I'm gently bordering the yellow with this very pinkish purple, so that when it mixes in with the blue, we are not getting green and we're getting a nice transition. Again, look at that, that was too strong. And also what you can do is you can take a bigger brush and you could just mop it, see? And then just swipe it on your cup. I'm just going to do a little bit over here. Even though that mix is not really going to be that problematic. Okay, I would say it's safe to bring in the blues. So even if this is wet, it's still fine, because if the blue mixes with the purple, you're actually going to get a really nice shade of blue. Okay, so in these little areas, I'm going to do a wet on wet. So I'm going to wet this area. Now, depending on what you have in your set, I mean, so like this blue is very cool. So if that's the blue that you have, you want to take a little bit of green. Oops. A lot more green, apparently, to get a brighter, a more green blue, like a turquoise. Turquoise is one of my key colors in all my paintings. So actually I did get this turquoise color in a separate tube, and it is called turquoise cobalt. Okay, and it's very turquoisey, and I really like it, because sometimes you just need that color. You know, again, you know, the sets is really just the basics, just like, you know, if you buy those makeup boxes, you know, that have a little bit of everything, you're still going to want to buy the things that that work for you specifically. I couldn't think of a better example, but so bottom line is, you know, you're probably going to want to buy your own. Okay, so I'm going to use a combination of this color. So I'm going to put that in here. And as I move higher up, I'm going to use the cooler blue. And now see, when this blue is mixing in with the purple, it's totally fine. And make sure when you put in the color, if you're seeing some white spots, kind of, you know, you can leave them. And now we can start trailing in here. my protected areas. Too strong, then you can just add some water. Okay, I'm just doing a light wet on wet. I just think that it helps kind of edges blend in a little bit better. And again, when you get, if you had bordered it, just give it a little bit of a swipe, kind of just to blend it in. You don't have too strong of a border. So again, this might not be as blue as you want it right now, but it will build up. And you can start putting in some of the peaks that you see of the blue. Even take some of it and put it into the clouds where you're seeing them. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry a little bit. So I'm going to bring out this area over here where the foam is gathering. This is a really fun area to work with, and I am going to use a really thin brush for that. All right, there's a thinner one. Okay, so remember we had put in a line which kind of disappeared, which is great actually. So we can start a new one, and I'm just going to use just kind of a muted purple. Again, to mute a color, just put brown or purple, but in this case it's purple, so I'm just putting a little bit of brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just giving this a little bit of an edge. I'm just adding a touch of like burgundy just to give it that depth. And again, notice that, you know, they're not steady lines. They're not the same thickness everywhere. And it kind of trails off up here. I'm just gonna make that darker. Okay, again, using that muted purple, I'm going to start just putting in the darker areas that I'm seeing within the foam. Whatever that you're seeing that is darker than everything else, you can start putting it in. You can also alternate and put in some of the blue, just, you know, very lightly. So you can see it's starting to give me that texture. I'm going to start deepening those terracottas in here. And the ones underneath. And now you're starting to see some contrast in here. Starting to make the waves look like they're coming, you know, forward. Again, I'm going to go in and work on you know, once you start really getting into this, you will start just, you know, you will start seeing more and more color all the time. I can just put in some of the blues, they're peeking in. And this is, you know, one area that I wouldn't worry too much about, you know, the goldens mixing in with the blue, because it does look a little bit greenish. It's sea foam that is just leaning a little bit more green. And that's really the only place where we're probably seeing it. And I'm sure you've noticed that, you know, when you're at the beach, you can see that a little bit more clearly. See that color. And see, the nice thing about starting out light is, see, now I'm able to kind of put in just a little bit of, you know, leaving out some of the lighter areas to show the white. Because also you have to think about what is actually pure white in the painting, and probably not a lot. Even, you know, this foam over here is actually not as white as it appears. And the more I'm contrasting over here, the more the white is starting to show, okay? So sometimes you create an illusion by putting darker colors next to them, and it will make it look a lot lighter. Okay, I'm gonna start going a little bit darker in here, in these little areas, not everywhere. Just in little key areas. And actually what's balancing out these really dark lines over here is this up here, those trees in the distance or buildings. I'm not sure, I cannot see that well. They're kind of a muted purple, blue, green. I mean, we know that they're green if they're trees, but, and I'm kind of just gonna let that line kind of just trail off a little bit. So you can see, excuse me, that this has created some balance in the painting. I'm trying to see what time it is. Okay, I did not realize it is already 2 o'clock. So Justin, sorry for keeping you. Okay, so what we would do next is pretty much what we have been doing. So again, I would be going in with more definitions into the purple, probably like, you know, on this one, you can see just starting to darken the clouds. But basically this is the idea. This is one, you know, one project you really want to move through, you know, slowly and carefully, but, you know, most importantly, protect the blue and the yellow from mixing in, and you should have some pretty good results. So can you unmute yourselves, or Justin, can you do that? And let's see what everyone has to say. Susanna, what did you think? That's beautiful.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Do you like the kind of the bordering, the colors to protect them?
Yes.
Yeah, I figured you're very technical. I thought you might appreciate that. I mean, I don't know if I invented it, but you know, I just feel it's very effective. I think, you know, also when I paint, I paint very quickly, and I want to make sure that I do that before I forget and not mix in the colors. So what is the turquoise you have?
I have a combination. I have a Japanese set that has
Oh,
kind of a turquoise, you know.
I'm jealous. That is gorgeous. Who makes those?
Um, I can only show you if you can read Japanese.
Oh, where'd you buy those?
I'll send you the.
Okay. Can you just lift it up again so everybody can see the set, like the colors? Isn't that exciting? That excites me totally. Those are great. Yeah, I'd love to see that. That's pretty cool.
I will send you this.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, there is no English translation, so you.
That's
Is that
okay. I
just-
think we can manage.
Is this the same thing?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. So Carol, so you like them, both of you?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
But now
Phyllis, you want to unmute yourself?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
How are you doing? Beautiful.
I don't know if you
Yes,
can-
perfect.
It's so hard to see it on the big screen.
I know. Justin, do you mind that we're keeping you a little extra? Sorry, we had a late start. Poor Melissa was driving, so you need to unmute yourself, Justin. I can't hear you. So everybody, you want to unmute yourselves so we can just have a quick discussion. So Carol?
Okay.
Beautiful. Wow. Gorgeous. Okay, Marlene, how did you do?
Terrible.
You have to pay your dues. That's because, oh no, that looks good.
No.
The paint, listen, the paint is a little much, okay? But it's nothing that can't be fixed. See, this is where I so miss being in person because I could instantly show you how to fix that. It just needs a swipe of water. And luckily I know where you live, so I will help you kind of get it.
I've got an inside tip here.
Yes. Sharon? Can you unmute yourself?
I wasn't able to do it today. I'll send it to you.
No, that's okay. That's understandable. You've had a lot going on today, so yeah.
Yeah, but
I like your
I
top by
watched and I took notes.
I know. You're probably tired too, so.
Oh, exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. Edith? Can you unmute yourself? I can't see it. It's too shiny. Okay. Now I see it. Looks good. Looks good. So let me just, who else is here? My mom disappeared. Okay.
I did better.
Huh?
I did better. I got the water into it.
Okay. Yeah, don't rush it. Don't rush it. It's a process. It'll all come with, with practice. So, just keep in mind that for all of us, and also including myself, the yellows look a little kind of strong right now, but once, you give them a little bit of orange on the side, they will start, blending into the scene. Again, sunsets and such a delicate color palette is something that just needs a lot of patience. And I could show you just how many. I have like maybe 5 that I started and thought, okay, well, I want this different, and here's the one we did. I think I have a few more. So, it's okay. It's okay to try several times. It's really rare that something will work from, just the very first time. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions? I'm excited to see how these work out. So again, if you want to add any colors to your palette, this is the Opera Rose that I like very much. Opera Rose, I love the name. And then this is the strong, it's not strong turquoise, but it's like a true, like, that turquoise color as we know it. And it's called Cobalt Turquoise. And if you don't remember these, just email me and I'll send them to you. And these are just individual ones. I like the box, but these are in a tube, so I can handle that. Okay, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next time.
So-
Okay, please make sure you email me, text me, call me, whatever, if you have any questions, and I want to see the outcome of these.